Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Saints got to work out in the Dome today. New turf, some renovations. Our guy Ross Jackson was there, and he's here right now. Hey, man, how are you?
Hey, buddy, doing great. As always, appreciate you having me on, man.
It's my pleasure. Hey, I want to start with, look, you got a firsthand view. Tell us about the Dome, the upgrades, man. How did it look?
Yeah, it was actually pretty sweet to, see it all in person because, you see those concept photos, and then you look at them and you kind of go, there's no way. I mean, I've been looking at the same Superdome since I was 5 years old, and thinking to myself, oh, okay, well, these concept photos are exactly what they are, concept, and then you actually walk through it like I did today, and it's pretty remarkable. They still have some a ways left to go. I mean, the way that you would kind of look at it is kind of say half of it is done in terms of where they are in their progress, but then the kind of phase 4 that they call it this year will be done about this time next year, ahead of when they will host that 2024-2025 Super Bowl later on in the season. And because of some of these renovations, they've actually already been able to submit for future Super Bowls as well. So we may be looking at another Super Bowl pretty soon after, or at least at some point have some news about, more than just the 2024-2025 year.
And tell me what was most notable, when you walked in and that caught your eye the most about the renovations.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was the kind of atrium area that they have up there now. There's kind of what used to be the Bienville Club side, and it's completely open. I mean, and it's general admission. It's all for the general folks. This is not just a club for folks that are there in the suites and stuff like that. But it looks just like it would be a club at another stadium and stuff like that. So what was really cool was standing on what was effectively one side of the Superdome and being able to look across where there's all these escalators and stuff like that now. It's where you can actually see the scoreboard from inside the bowl, which is pretty cool. So, so I love just sort of the open nature of it and now how easy it is to get from one level to another with all the new escalators in there.
I know that's probably only really going to affect the people who attend the games or attend events in the Dome, but still it's worth, as you mentioned, notable because with a lot of these upgrades to the Dome, it makes you more eligible, more appealing for Super Bowls and other events like that. So that's cool. We're looking forward to getting a firsthand view of that Sunday when the Saints and the Chiefs play. I'll come back to Sunday in a second, but let's stay on today's practice. I know it was in the Dome. What did they do? How did they sort of structure practice today in the Dome?
Yeah, practice was a little bit different in the Dome today, but they got a lot of similar work that you would usually see them get in 7-on-7s. They did a couple of team drills. Instead of them doing one-on-ones, they did this sort of drill that they've added over the course of this season to where they've been kind of doing what I guess I would call 2-on-2s. So if you imagine, being lined up within the 5-yard line of the goal line, so a goal line situation, and you're running what the offense would call the rub routes, and the defense would call the pick routes, right? They're doing a lot of that work to where they're using those wide receivers in tandem with the quarterback. And so I think that's been an interesting thing. So you watch them do that as well as the usual, field goal, special teams drills, things like that. So not a ton change. I think the big things that just sort of shifted were that they got quickly into those team drills. And then when they did the team drills, they did them in sort of these in-game situations to continue working on some situational football.
Ross, I know the first depth chart was the first sort of unofficial depth chart was released. Anything stand out heading into this first preseason game on that depth chart?
Yeah, there wasn't a lot that was surprising there, but I think the one thing that really, really stood out and I think spoke pretty loudly was the left guard position where it said James Hurst or Andrus Peat. Not Andrus Peat or James Hurst, not Andrus Peat. It said James Hurst or Andrus Peat. And some of that might have had to do with the fact that, look, Andrus Peat's dealing with his injury right now, and they were kind of aware that that was going to be the case, perhaps, things like that. But I do think that even just from an eye test view of watching these guys, throughout training camp so far, I think James Hurst has done a great job at left guard. And so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that's a little bit more of a competition or conversation than maybe folks realize going into training camp.
Is it more surprising to see the or at left guard or to see Trevor Penning alone there as the starter at left tackle this early in camp?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think I think it was more surprising for me to see the Orr at left guard than it was to see Trevor Penning as the starter. I think that Trevor Penning being the starter was kind of in the cards going into the regular season one way or another. And I think some of that has to do with the investment that they have in him. I think some of it probably also has to do with the fact that who would start in place of Trevor Penning other than James Hurst. But if James Hurst is now all of a sudden in competition at left guard, it kind of complicates, not starting Trevor Penning at left tackle. So I think that the Saints have an express sort of intent on getting Trevor Penning ready to be their starter at left tackle, and I think that he's on pace to do that.
There's I know our friends over at New Orleans Football posted a video of Penning and Ramchick working together, like on sort of a kick slide type thing. Do you sense that, Ross, being out there every day, that the veterans are sort of open to helping the younger guys come along? Like, is there that level of team commitment, continuity already?
Yeah, 100%. And it goes at every position. But I'll use the offensive line as an example. Actually, Ryan Ramchick spoke to us and New Orleans media just a couple of days ago, and he talked about him working with Trevor Penning and working on kind of the finer tunes of playing the offensive line position, the fundamentals, footwork, hand placement, things like that. So we see that from him. We see, the wide receivers all working together a ton. We see Alvin Kamara constantly working with Kendre Miller. We watch Tyrann Mathieu constantly working with younger safeties like, Jordan Howden, who had an interception today, by the way. Derek Carr's first interception in team drills all off season, and it was the rookie Jordan Howden that picked him off in the back of the end zone. So you're seeing a lot of the rookies and veterans working together, but now B, you're also seeing it work for the younger guys, and you're seeing it translate out onto the field.
Ross Jackson is with us, of course, from Locked On Saints. He's on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola. If I asked you key sort of a what to watch Sunday in the Dome, Saints Chiefs, what are your few bullet points that you're highlighting?
Yeah, I think you're going to be seeing the starters for this game. You're going to see the starters for Kansas City and the starters for New Orleans. So with that being the case, it gives you the first little bit of a taste of what the new look New Orleans Saints offense will look like. And on the opposite side of that, how their kind of revamped defense looks as well, especially on the defensive interior. So you're going to be able to have some actual takeaways from a preseason game about, how things are shaping up early on for the offense. Now, it's not going to be end-all, be-all, or rather, for the starters. It's not end-all, be-all, of course, but it will give you at least something to take away there. And then I think, you've got a couple of players that you're going to be watching. Watch Alontae Taylor, number one, and see how, he continues to move forward as he continues to close the gap in that cornerback position battle with Paulson Adebo. Watching the rookies and Brian Brzee on the defensive line, as well as A.T. Perry at wide receiver. How do they continue to make their strides and step forward? Jordan Howden, number 31 at safety. There'll be a lot of those opportunities to really get a chance to get a look at all of these players and the younger guys in particular who are going to see quite a bit of time out on the field. And the last thing that I'll mention, too, is it's going to be interesting to see how much Trevor Penning plays. Does he play with the first team and the second team? Does he only play with the first team? I'll be really interested to see that, because if there's anybody out there that can benefit from more snaps than just with the starting unit, it's Trevor Penning, just to continue to build those reps and kind of stack those opportunities.
Hey, Ross, before you go, one more thing. I'd love a thought on Jaylon Smith. Signed, was at practice today. I presume he'll play some role in the preseason game. Just a thought on the addition of the linebacker?
Yeah, I like the addition. He's 6'2", 245-pound off-ball guy. That's what the New Orleans Saints don't have on their roster right now. Dennis Allen was really clear about it a couple of days ago, where he said, hey, we're still trying to find out who the off-ball, or in other words, coverage linebacker, right? The guy that does a little bit more of the coverage work. Who's the off-ball linebacker behind guys like Demario Davis and Pete Werner? And then he straight up said that, they don't know who that is yet. They don't have an answer for that. And so you go out and you get a guy that has played over 500 coverage snaps in each of his major seasons, going back to his Dallas Cowboys seasons, and seeing the effectiveness that he plays in coverage. He's not a takeaway artist by any means, but he can take some players out of games. And so if he's able to stay healthy and maintain the athleticism and speed that has always kind of been his brand, then there's value for him there as a depth linebacker behind Demario Davis and Pete Werner, and I think that's what you're looking for out of him. I don't know that we'll see him this Sunday, but I would be completely assured that we would see him next weekend. I think Dennis Allen said that they will have him ready for an emergency role this weekend now.
He is Ross Jackson, again on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola. Make sure you're subscribed up to Locked On Saints, however you get your podcast. Always appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure, buddy. Take care, stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon.
Always our pleasure. That is Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints. Make sure you're subscribed up to the podcast. Big one. Preseason starts this weekend. We'll start to get some of those answers. Look, I admit it. I get not everybody loves preseason. I do. I'm a total nerd. I nerd out on figuring out roster spot 51, 52, 53. Because so often we talk about no team ever goes through a season without injury. Depth matters. You're in the middle of a game and, God forbid, Marshawn Lattimore goes down. What do? Who's the corner that steps in? We know you love Adebo and Alontae Taylor along with Lattimore, but then there's Roby, and then does it cause a domino effect? And then who steps where on special teams units? It all matters when every roster spot in the NFL is so valuable. So yes, 51, 52, 53, especially in a year where you might be keeping a fourth tight end and a third quarterback. That's effectively 2 roster spots for guys that normally don't have an excess at those positions. So yes, this year maybe even more so than most. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.